All right, Joe, what's going on, my man? Welcome to the podcast.
How's it going, man? Glad to be here.
Yeah, me as well. So, just jumping right in, we've been talking on a few different fronts for a little while now. But for those that don't know, could you give our audience a quick background on what your business is and what your role in the business is?
Yeah, so it's kind of everything short-term rentals, right? So got my real estate license about 6 years ago, wanting to getting into short-term rentals or into real estate investing in general. As I was doing lots of research and reading books, I knew short-term rentals was going to be my space. So I bought my first short-term rental about 3 years ago. Actually, bought two back to back, and right away realized that it was something I really, really enjoyed. And I knew a lot about it, but I wanted to be among the best. So I joined Bill Faith's accelerator program and wanted to learn from the best in the industry. And since then, I am now duly licensed, helping real estate investors sell in both Florida and in St. Louis, primarily in Florida, though, in the Panhandle. And we have jumped into co-hosting, and my wife and I have a co-hosting business where we have 9 properties across Branson, Missouri, and Panama City Beach, and we have our own short-term rental as well.
Gotcha, that's awesome. I feel like you're shortchanging it a little bit on talking about the co-host business or just like the scale or volume that you're doing. Could you just give us some context, I guess, on number of units or transaction volume, stuff like that, just so we could have kind of the context?
Yeah, yeah. So, once I bought my first two short-term rentals, I knew the co-hosting business was something I wanted to jump into. So I picked up 4 properties in the first 4 or 5 months that I wanted to get into it. Since then, we jumped to 10 total co-host properties. And in the meantime, I actually started a co-host mastermind and a podcast to talk to other people about co-hosting, because I truly believe it is a amazing way to scale your business in the short-term rental space, but also help owners, because there are so many owners that got into this space over the last few years, and they went and hired these big property management companies that are just not doing a good job for them. And the smaller boutique managers, co-hosts, are really knocking out of the park, and we're helping our owners make more money. And instead of they being the owners that are selling their properties because they're losing, they're now seeing a profit, which is really awesome to see.
Cool. Awesome. So, with a few different businesses going on, you have a mastermind, you have the real estate business itself, and then you have the co hosting. What do you see as your best use of time in the business right now? Your highest leverage task, your highest priority task? What tasks do you feel drive the business forward the most?
Honestly, it is networking with people and having conversations with investors, owners, and helping them see, what this industry looks like, what they need to do to be successful, and helping them find that way to be successful. So, in the real estate side of it, in the past 6 months since joining the Savvy SDR agent team, I think I've put 12 or 13 deals under contract, and every single one of these investors, we're having one-on-one conversations, helping them be prepared to launch their short-term rentals for success, instead of being one of the average short-term rentals that are not doing as well.
I gotcha. We've had some people on the show talk about how their brokerage business feeds their co-hosting business. Is that similar for you or something different in the sense of if you could help someone buy or sell a property, then it's like a natural progression that if you just did a great job for them buying a property, then you're the first one in line that could also help them manage the property. But sometimes people say, no, that's not what they do. They're not interested in, taking that model on or just adding more co-host clients that way. How about you?
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't take on any of my real estate clients. I don't manage any of their properties currently. I did have one that I took over. It was a friend of mine that bought a condo, and I helped him get started, and then transferred him to somebody else that was on my mastermind. I like to keep the businesses separate. If it works out, and I build a great relationship with a client, and their property fits our niche, then we would consider it. But we are really selective on the type of property we're going to co-host, and we don't just take on. I've probably turned down 30 properties in the past year for a co-hosting business, because if it's not going to be in the area that I want, the type of property I want, and most importantly, my wife and I going in and redesigning and remodeling a property to make it a super property. If it's not all of the above, then it's not something that's going to fit our portfolio. We only want to manage top performing properties.
So that kind of brings us, I guess, to a question that I'm always curious about then with people that have multiple businesses or, growing different businesses at different times. Like what are your goals for the business? Is one you're planning to have be much bigger than the others and another maybe winding down or smaller? Or is the plan to kind of keep them all the same size, but just, for every new client you get, you back one out? Like what are your goals and plans for kind of everything you're doing?
Yeah, in my co-hosting business, I think 12 is kind of the magic number for me. I don't really want to go bigger than 12 properties. I want 12 properties that'll do 150 to $300,000 a year. And I use the co-hosting business to grow my personal portfolio, because that's all of the funds that we make in the co-hosting business are going into a separate account to be able to purchase another property. So we're going to purchase another short-term rental this August, and hopefully about every 6 to 8 months after that, we can continue to add on through our co-hosting business. And our real estate side of the business is, that's our living wage, right? That's what we live on. That's what we, pay my daughter's college tuition with. That's, that's what we live on.
I gotcha. So when you think about, I guess, how the co-host business can, grow or scale or stay the way it is, did you always have the approach that you were going to stay with higher performing, larger properties, or did you start smaller, get experience, get referrals, build it a little bit, and then pick a niche? Or did you know that from the beginning that that was going to be your niche?
I knew it from the beginning, but I didn't, a lot of people say, oh, that's my niche from the beginning, but the first person that signs on with you isn't going to be the mega property, so I did start on with a couple of smaller
You mean
properties. And
someone who has a $300,000 property in revenue, they're not going to give it to someone that's never done it before?
Exactly. And it's funny because I talk to people that want to get into this industry all the time, and they say, that's all I want to manage, and I'm not going to take anything less than this. And I've talked to them, and a year later, they're still waiting on that first property. And, I actually just went through my co-host mastermind, and I asked everyone this week how many co-host properties they're up to. And we've only had our mastermind for about a year and a half. And of the 12 people in it, I think we're sitting at just shy of 70 co-host properties, in the 12 people in our mastermind. And, there's some people that have scaled bigger than that, but the majority of this is 12 quality properties in our mastermind. Or I'm sorry, almost 70 quality properties, not, one bedroom houses that are going to do $10,000 a year. Because, it takes the same amount of time to manage a property that does $200,000 a year as one that does $50,000 a year. And when you're talking percentages, that percentage is better. However, my first property did $68,000 the first year I managed it, and I still manage that property. It actually is for a friend, and they have a great cabin in Branson, and, we'll probably do 75, 80K, and I'm going to continue to help them because they're just amazing people. But that's not typically my niche as I'm moving forward.
I gotcha. That's cool to hear, though. Sometimes the first ones are the worst ones, and maybe you did have that, but in some cases, it's also cool that you could have relationships with those people, and they're worth keeping because they're just good people, and they're not a problem. I'd love to talk about the operations of the co-host business and then the real estate business as well. But could you walk, I guess, us through of how you handle managing or co-hosting? I think you said 10 properties right now. Walk us through the ops, who maybe is involved in helping that, if you have any help, or if it's you and your wife and using systems and technology. But high level, just if you could walk us through the ops and then we dig in a little more.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I want to keep it to about 10 to 12 properties is because I can still manage it pretty much myself, my wife and I. I handle 100% of the guest communication. I handle, making sure the rental agreements are taken care of and security deposits and contacting the handyman, paying the cleaners, all that type of stuff. I do have an amazing team on the ground. I have handymen that are going to my property, each property monthly, doing their maintenance checks. Obviously, the cleaning team is a huge, huge part of that. I have a couple different cleaning teams that I use, and there are eyes and ears on the ground, and they are awesome. It took about a year and a half to build those teams. We had that first year or so building this business was a lot of ups and downs. Had to fire some cleaners, had to fire some handymen, and it took a little time to find the right people. But now that we do, it's smooth sailing. I do have a virtual assistant that does help me with listing optimization. She's posting my properties in buy sell trade group. She's helping with Facebook ads. She's doing tracking KPIs, sending me reports weekly on the KPIs so I can see where our rankings are, how many reviews we're getting, and make adjustments based on that. But she doesn't do anything with guest communication.
Got it. How did you decide, I guess, what your VA was going to do, since they're not doing communication, which I feel like is for most people the first thing that they look for a VA for?
I really think that the guest communication is by far just so important, and it's my wife and I are a little more type A. She is more than me. I'm not ready to give that up yet. I'm not saying I won't in the future, but I love talking to the guests. I love having that interaction. It's one of the things I thoroughly enjoy in this business is actually having that communication. And, I'm very similar to others where when we get a good booking, I'm doing a quick 30-second video and texting that to that guest and saying, thanks so much. This is my personal cell phone number. Reach me here with anything you need. And I just want to create great experiences. I've had bad experiences on vacation, and I want to make sure every one of our guests get a great experience. And it's hard to do that with somebody that's, 5,000 miles away in another country.
Just to understand, when you say you send a video, is that like every booking you send like a selfie video saying like, hey, nice to meet you, or what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, not every booking, but any booking over roughly $2,500, $3,000. So, a weekend getaway that they're spending $500, it's pretty basic communication like I would normally get. But, I have some luxury properties that are getting $5, $8, $10, $12, $13,000 bookings. And I'm in my market, my STR, I can actually shoot a quick video and shoot them a quick text and just do a selfie video, introduce them to me, tell them who I am. And it makes that personal connection throughout their entire stay, and they know who I am. And our 5-star review rate is much higher. We're getting a lot of repeat guests because of it, and it's just making that personal connection.
I've never heard anyone do that. Did you just decide to do that one day, or did you hear someone else doing that? I've never heard anyone do that.
Learned it from the GOAT, Bill Faith. He's been doing that for quite a few years. When I was in his accelerator program 3 years ago, he talked about doing it at that time. And I don't know what his dollar amount is, but he gets $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 bookings for some of his properties. But I do know that he does it for the majority of his bookings.
On that note, I was going to go somewhere else, but just talking about, you said you have a really high 5-star review rate. Is there things like that, things that you feel just enhance the guest experience a little bit or make them realize it's an elevated experience that usually would lead to a 5-star review? Anything else come to mind that you think enhances the experience?
Oh yeah, trying to get a personal connection. When they send a request in and they have dogs, I want to know what kind of dogs they got. How old are they? And then I tell them, I'm talking about my Frenchie. And, I have a guest staying at our house. She just booked a 8-night stay in March, and she's got 2 Frenchies, so we were sharing pictures back and forth of our Frenchies. And, so those personal connections, make it go a long way. So even when a guest does have not a perfect experience, which happens, you're going to have guests, things are going to break. They're texting me and saying, hey, this is going on. Hey, I'm still going to give you an amazing review, but you need to take care of this or this, because we missed something. And, like I said, it doesn't mean every property, every single stay is perfect by no means, but it makes it a lot easier when they're talking to me as a host instead of the big property managers of the world that they don't even know who it is.
Yeah, 100%. Just, in some experiences when I've traveled and you realize you're talking to a person instead of, that might have more vested interest in the property, or like, it makes such a difference. Like even right now, I'm looking to book a property in Raleigh in April. It might take like 3 or 4 hours to get responses from some people. It just leaves such a bad taste. Like, what is the experience going to be like when I'm there if this is what it's like before I even give them money?
Yeah, it's funny. I have the automated messaging, so there's an automated response right away. And, obviously for the algorithms, but in that message it says, hey, this is an automated response. Unless I'm unavailable I'll be messaging you probably within the next 5 minutes. And I would probably say my response rate is less than 3 minutes when an inquiry comes in, unless
Yeah.
I'm in the air or I'm in, something like this, in a podcast or something that I just can't stop what I'm doing. So I have that automated messaging there for a reason, but I would say the majority of my people get responses instantaneously. And I've even had guests message me at 10 o'clock at night, and my wife and I are sitting on the couch, watching the evening news or whatever it may be. And they're like, oh, I didn't think I'd get a response until morning. And that goes a long way.
Just knocking it out. I love it. Before we go to the real estate business, I'd love to talk a little bit more about just like operations. There's a few questions I'm always curious to get people's opinions on. And some of these are even more top of mind for me because I was just in my properties last week doing like some site visits and putting some golf simulators in. So there were a lot of things though when I do my check-ins that I want to improve or just like adjust. So some of these are more top of mind than others. The first, I'm curious how you handle thermostats or temperature controls across your properties to one, make sure that pipes don't burst and things don't either be too hot or cold when guests walk in, but also to make sure that your utility bills are not crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. As a co-host, I let the owners can't control their own thermostats. I'm not going in and controlling their thermostats for them. We do have, controls set, on minimum and maximums. Nothing crazy, So the temperature's never going to drop to 40 degrees in the house. We want to keep it at a constant. My cleaners go in and that's one of the things they take a picture of and send it to me that they set the thermostats back to a normal rate, 70, 72, whatever it is when they're leaving. So if somebody does go in and put it in a little low or a little high depending on the time of year, they'll go in, they'll check that when they're in there. But I am not go in and check all my thermostats every day. I do have access to a couple of them for owners that I know are pretty pretty hands off, but for the most part I'm not in there a ton.
Is there a thermostat that you like or recommend, or are all your owners different?
I can tell you I hate the Google Nest. I have two properties with it, and I
They
have more
suck.
guests complain that they have no idea how to operate it than any other thermostat out there. So, the Honeywells are great. As long as you stay away from the Google Nest, I think you'll be okay. So,
It's so crazy to me how maybe it's because they were the first, like in that wave of smart home, but those things freaking suck. Like they're just confusing. If they break, they're impossible to troubleshoot. Like I don't know how that's a probably $1 billion like part of the company. It's terrible. But okay,
yeah.
Honeywell and it sounds like anything except that is good.
Yes. Yeah. But Honeywell would be my go-to.
I gotcha. Just going down the line here, what is your software stack, or do you have any recommended software stack, tech, or things like that you recommend, or just have good or bad experiences, kind of like this?
Yeah, I started with Guesty in the very beginning, and I just had too many glitches. It didn't work for me, so I ended up switching to OwnerRez. I do still have the hospitable messaging system currently, but I'm getting ready to switch over to 100% OwnerRez over the next couple of weeks and just do everything from that platform. I love that I can send rental agreements. I love that I can get security deposits. I love that I have owners reporting. I can give owners access. Like everything in hospitable works great for me. Price Labs. Love the system of Price Labs, and Market My STR is been a real big game changer for me. Having the email marketing campaign, I think I have 13 websites built on our landing page built on Market My STR, and it's unlimited. So I can build as many as I want and have as many websites as I want because each property gets its own landing page. I do have one that has all of my properties. I don't really advertise it or market it, but if a friend says, hey, I want to book one of your properties, can you send them all to me? I have a landing page I can send them that shows them all the properties, but when I'm running Facebook ads or marketing, I'm marketing to the specific properties, website, not to my property management.
I actually don't know much about Market My STR. Could you give me the explanation to someone who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, so you may have heard of Go High Level. MicroMySTR is basically the Go High Level platform, just in a different name. So it's kind of an everything in one for your marketing campaign. So it's got a built-in CRM. So in each one of my properties, I got StayFi, and owner res, and all of the guest information emails automatically API connects and goes into the CRM for the correct property. And then from there, they go right into an email marketing campaign, which sends out auto emails over a 250-day period, about every 20 days, to get them to rebook and come back with us. And it's separated by property. I can also schedule my social media in Market My STR. I'll be honest, I don't utilize this, but I can. It also has text marketing in there, the email marketing campaign, so a little bit of all of that. And then it also has landing pages, and you can build as many landing pages as you want. There's templates in there. On average, I can build a website start to finish in less than an hour on the platform, and it's just so easy to do. So it's some people will use Wix or leadpages.com or one of these other landing page websites like that, but Market My STR, it is great if you have 3 or more properties. If you only have 1 property, it's probably a little bit too expensive for just 1 property, but if you're 3 or more properties, it's worth every penny.
Super interesting. I mean, I think I have heard of it or people have mentioned it, but just interesting and kind of stick on this for a sec. I guess you don't know if you don't know the exact percentage, but because of this tool, what would you say if it's from a revenue or like percentage wise of your bookings now come from direct bookings because of, it sounds like, just from this tool?
It's hard to say that because I've only been using the tool for a year. And the rebooking and remarketing, it's a long game, right? I mean, we're just now going into the second summer from when I did it last summer. So we're going to start to see some of those people coming back this summer to rebook with us. And we're seeing some of those come through. But I can't sit and say, okay, we're at 20% or 10% or 30% because we're really in our second year using the platform. I think about 2 to 2.5 years of using the platform and being consistent with our marketing strategy is where we're going to see the results. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make. They try something, they try it for a year, and they're like, well, I didn't get any bookings over that, so I'm going to move on to something else. And you got to look at the long game. When you're talking about getting people to come back year after year after year, people aren't vacationing 7 times a year. Most of them are working their butt off to go on one vacation. And if they went on vacation in July of last year and I got their information and I'm giving up right now, well, they're not even to their rebooking time yet. They're not even looking at rebooking until April. So, right now is when I'm sending out some extra, information to my email marketing campaign and say, hey, summer booking season's here. Here's an extra 5%. Here's an extra 10%, whatever it may be, and getting them to book directly with me that way. But, I can't put a number on it just yet. Ask me again next year.
We'll have to do a part 2. We'll definitely have to do that. I guess just sticking on this for a sec, because I do think it's something a lot of people are interested in. So as far as how it actually works, you collect the emails from StayFi. It seems like Market My STR, then it'll link with the emails and the listing. So it'll sort of be like a CRM, have the properties, collect the emails. And then the main benefit, it sounds like, is email follow-up and sequences. Do you then write the emails yourself? Do you use templates that they supply? Do you use ChatGPT? Like, what's your workflow, I guess, as far as doing this? You're busy. You got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, this is important, but like writing for a lot of people is not something that's like their strong suit, and just they could sit at an empty screen for hours and write 5 words,
Yeah, so there was templates built into it. They have a full email marketing template that Scott built. He's the owner of Market My STR, and they have a great team that helps with that. I did have my VA and go in and edit each one to personalize it, so she had to go in and change the property names and some of the things to do at the property or around the area. So we did spend about 2 weeks when we first got this set up to create this email marketing campaign. And so once it was set up, it's all automated. As soon as a guest checks out, they're getting their first email within 24 hours saying thank you so much for booking. If you'd like to rebook right now, you can. Take 10% off. Blah blah blah. And then some of the marketing is nothing about them rebooking at all. I got email that says Dolly Parton's dinner theater is opening June 1st, and are you going to be in PCB to be one of the first ones to see the newest show? Or Kid Rock just bought Spinnakers and he's opening a Tootsie's on the beach. So or if I see a new nice restaurant, I'll tell my VA to go in and change and send an email about a new restaurant that we tried. So it's not always about just rebooking. If all you do is email to try to sell, they're just going to click. They don't want it to get your email anymore. So
Yeah.
you've got to provide value in those emails 90% of the time.
Just making sure I understand this. Is your VA going in and updating current events, or is there some AI component that's seeing the thing about Dolly Parton? Like, how does that information get loaded in there?
I'm telling her that
Okay.
I'm doing it. It's a little bit of a manual process right now. I'm sure. Actually, I know for a fact there are features in MarketMySTR that I am not using. In fact,
Okay.
MarketMySTR has just updated basically a new platform called Future Stay that is going to probably be a game changer in the industry. And I don't even want to speak about it because I haven't even researched it yet. But I know there's people on my team that are using it already in my co-host mastermind, and it's going to be a game changer in the industry. I have a feeling.
Gotcha. That's legit. Okay, cool. Just before we move off this, is there anything else you're doing to get direct bookings? If it's leaving stuff in the properties, if it's sending people follow up with a website, part of this, but like it's something that just people struggle with, and I hear time and time again. I've struggled with it. We don't have a great system in place for it. Of just what you're doing to give yourself a chance to get direct bookings.
Yeah, so we have QR codes in the property. There's QR codes with our direct booking website. There's QR codes with our digital guidebook. There's actually a QR code. Every property has a sign in front of it by the road where people are walking by, and that says, "Okay, this is our property, management name. This is our property name, my phone number, my toll-free phone number, and then a QR code. So they could scan that QR code and go right to our direct booking website as they're walking by our house." And then we're using Facebook ads. So one of the great things about collecting all those emails in StayFi and in OwnerRes is now we have a file of over 2,000 emails. I think we might be up to 2,400 emails, something like that right now. And we can put those into a CSV file, put them into Facebook, and do Facebook ads retargeting and doing a lookalike from the people that we have. So there's just so many benefits of collecting that data and making sure you reuse that data to get more bookings.
You're the first person I've heard on the show that's doing that, which is really cool. Did you learn Facebook ads yourself? YouTube? Did you hire an agency? Did you hire a VA? Who's running your ads? How did you get up to speed on that? Because ads can be intimidating.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually, my previous life, I was a district manager for Sears home appliance showroom stores, so small town hometown stores, and we were big on local marketing. And we'd have friends and family events and different events, and we actually started doing Facebook ads back then. I actually taught the entire nation of district managers how to run Facebook ads, and I had just kind of learned it on my own. Now, I will tell you, Facebook ads back in 2010, 2012 look very, very different than what they do today. We couldn't target the way we could now. And, I can't say it was a waste of money back then, but today we can really narrow down our audience and who we're actually going after. And it makes a big, big difference. So Chris Wharton, who's, Bill's right-hand guy in the accelerator program, when I did the accelerator, he did a 2.5 hour deep dive on Facebook ads. And I still watch that probably every 3 to 6 months because I'm still learning information from that 2.5 hour deep dive that I didn't learn the first time, second time, or third time I watched it. So he is the best when it comes to Facebook ads. He is just really, really amazing. I think you can get that in his Superhost library, but it was part of our accelerator program, and that's where I took it to a whole new level. Is when I did that.
Man, that's awesome. That's very cool. You have a very, very colorful and interesting background, I must say. From doing the snow plowing, which we were talking about before this, to now, that's just a wild little fun fact. But I love it, man. That's really cool. Do you recommend just someone listening to this right now, like, is that a missed opportunity? Do you get bookings from? Clearly, if you're putting money into it, I assume the answer is yes. If you have any, dollar amounts or anything that could kind of like reinforce it or validate doing it, because people might be listening to this and they're like, huh, Facebook ads complicated, it's another thing to do, but is it worth it?
It is worth it, and I can't sit and pinpoint and say I got 9 bookings from this Facebook ad, but we're doing over half of our Facebook ads are actually directing people to our Airbnb listing over our direct booking website. And the reason why we're doing that is multiple reasons. Number one, we're getting more people to click on our Airbnb listing and wish list it, which is helping us in the algorithms and the search rankings. Number two, there are a lot of people that are really skeptical on direct booking websites. So if you think you're just going to go out and start booking people on a direct booking website without them staying at your property and building a relationship, it's not happened that often unless you're the big companies of the world that they know Southern Vacation Rentals or whatever it may be has been around for 30 years. So there's just a lot of people that are really skeptical about going to direct booking websites. So we do some, but the honest truth is the majority of my Facebook ads are going to my Airbnb. And even if I don't get a booking, it's helping me in the algorithms and it's helping me in the search rankings.
That's really cool. I love that. Okay, just wanted to stay on that for a sec, just because I hadn't heard that before, and that's something that's really interesting. Um, there's some new ones popping up as far as like OTAs or places that people list their properties. Are your listings mainly across Airbnb, Verbo, Direct, and Furnish Finder? Are there any others that you've played around with? Booking or Google or anything like that, or is that kind of your core set and it's working for you?
That's my core set. It's working for me. I tested a property on Booking and it was a disaster, and I don't think I'll go back. I'm not opposed to putting on Google Vacation Rentals. That's probably something we'll do. There are a couple, rental places in Florida, specifically FloridaRentals.com and Emerald Coast by Owner, and there's a few of them that we've kind of played with to see, and have gotten some. Some of them have done fairly okay, and some of them not much. So we're still kind of playing with those. So we're trying some of that. But Airbnb is 75% of our bookings. VRBO is probably 20 to 25, and direct is probably 5 to 10 right now. And I think we'll see that direct in 2025 go up to maybe 15 to 18 is kind of my goal. And then, eventually would love to get to 30+%.
Gotcha. I know I said last question, but just that you did put a number to it there, 15 to 18. Do you think most of that comes from the repeat follow-ups, or do you think most of that comes from the Facebook ads? Like that's a big percentage. Like that's a thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's like if someone's not doing that, they're potentially leaving 15 to 18% of a big number on the plate. So I'm just trying to kind of pull it down to like where should they start? But it sounds like you might know of that percentage where most of it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, 5 to 10% in year one was kind of my goal, and you're going to get some direct bookings just with family and friends, and people that you're in your community. I actually had a close friend of mine that we skateboarded together for many years, and his daughter's got a softball tournament in Branson, and they just booked both him and another family booked both of my cabinets for a whole week, for direct bookings this summer. So some of it comes from just posting on your own Facebook group and letting people know what you're doing, and that's really important.
Just to close out, of that percentage, is one of them just from the repeats, or would you say more coming from Facebook, or just half and half?
I'd probably say, right now I'm getting more from my, friends, family, Facebook. Starting to see more on the repeat since we're going into year two of really marketing to that. The first 2 years I was in the industry, I did not do a good job of remarketing to my guests that were there. So now that we're going to start to see that, we're already seeing that. I'm getting some emails, I'm getting some requests, of people that want to rebook this year. I'll get a better idea of what that percentage looks like, at the end of summer.
I gotcha. Cool. I guess just last thing on the op side of like real estate again, because it seems like you've got good processes in place for a bunch of different things. Always like to ask, 4-star review comes in, someone seemed like they had a good stay at the property. What is your SOP or way to handle that, or maybe get the review removed? If it's someone that had a good stay but left a 4-star, just because.
Honestly, I put a comment on it. If they had a good stay, I just say thank you so much and appreciate it, and it's not going to hurt my rankings. It's not bad to have a 4-star review. Now, if I get a 2 or a 3-star review, which I think has happened twice, in 3 years, then I'm picking up the phone and calling that guest and be like, okay, what happened, whatever. And we're really going in there and fixing it, or figuring it out. And we've had 1 or 2 removed that were retaliatory type reviews because the guest did some damage, and we charged them for it, and they did a retaliatory review. But other than that, a 4-star review is not a bad review. I think everyone is so focused on 5s. I think 4 of my 10 properties have never had anything less than a 5-star review, which is great. But, I even had an owner, we got our first 4-star review after 25 straight 5s. And she's like, what are we going to do? We got a 4-star review. I'm like, it's going to look like we're human, because when you look at a listing that has nothing but 5 stars, it might think, this is fake. So having a 4-star every once in a while, it's not going to hurt you. It's not the end of the world.
And on the 2s and 3s, when you pick up the phone or you have a retaliatory review, what is your process of trying to get that review removed?
First I ask them if they'll remove it, and I'll just text them and be like, hey, this is Joe from the house. Whatever. I had one maybe a couple months ago that this happened, and they, some things that they thought happened didn't happen, some of the stuff they were lying about, whatever. And I just said, you know what? I said, it was a brand new property. We had just taken it over, and, really, want to get your feedback, whatever we can do. And on that particular one, we refunded their $500 cleaning fee. They removed the review, and we chalked it up as, you know what? We messed up, and we got to do better. And, some of it was, actually, that particular one was a property we took over, but they had already had a couple bookings in place, so we didn't actually get to go in and do what we do until a couple weeks later. And, it is what it is. And we got the review removed and went in there and did the things that we do, and I won't have to worry about it anymore.
Love it. Before we move off, I guess, STR ops, is there anything that comes to mind or anything that you think people mess up a lot that you guys do well, or it could be an easy thing or a complicated thing, but just something that you see and kind of roll your eyes at or shake your head at, of something that could be done that people aren't doing or could be done better?
Yeah, it's going to be a design thing, because I see people all the time. They have these beautiful homes, and then they have this king size bed, and they have 2 pillows, and it drives me insane when you have this beautiful house, and they could have decorative pillows and pillow shams and all this other stuff, but there's only 2 white usable pillows, and I sleep with 2 pillows. So if I'm looking at a listing and I see 1 pillow for my wife and 1 pillow for me, and yes, there might be more pillows up in the cabinet, I don't see that in the pictures. I'm not booking your place because there's not four pillows on that bed. And it's just one of those, I don't know. It's just one of those things that bothers me. And I see some of the best designers in the industry design homes with 2 usable pillows on the bed. And, if you have a twin kids room, you're fine with 1 pillow. But the king bedroom that the husband and wife that booked it are staying in, get them some pillows.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Next topic, as we kind of get towards winding down here, is just the real estate business, working with clients, helping them buy and sell. And then I want to talk about your mastermind as well. In that business, it seems like things have really started to pick up for you just from talking before hitting record. I'd love to hear any tactics or things that you've done or think that, may have changed, that are leading to new business, or anything that you're doing to get clients, or why clients are wanting to work with you. There's a lot of different reasons, but is there any that you can kind of put your finger on as the reasons?
I would say the number one reason is that most real estate agents, they get a bad name because they're all about the transaction. Most real estate agents are counting up their commission before they even write the contract. And I am not in it for a contract. I can actually tell you, I've told at least a dozen investors this year to not buy a certain house that they wanted to buy because it didn't make sense. The numbers didn't make sense. And most real estate agents in my position be like, ooh, yay, I'm going to get a sale. I don't care if they fail or not. That's not me. I want my investors that are working with me, I want to sit down and write a pro forma with them. I want to make sure that they know their numbers. A lot of them, they've called me, they're like, I've bought, but I'll give an example. I have one that I'm working with, I'm meeting tomorrow. He said he bought 16 houses last year, 16 short-term rentals last year. His agent had never even talked to him about writing a pro forma. He's never written a pro forma. He doesn't even, he just kind of took the agent's word for it, and he's going to have to list about 5 or 6 of those because they weren't good buys.
Wow.
And that's okay. But why would I let someone buy a house that's not going to make sense money wise? Now, every investor's got different goals. That doesn't mean every investor is going to get a 20% return. That doesn't mean that every investor is going to even cash flow, because some of them are buying, lifestyle assets. That's okay. Every investor's got different goals. But the most important thing that I do is try to really understand what those goals are and help them identify a property that's going to meet their goals and be able to hit the numbers that they want to hit.
Just hearing it, like I've worked with so many brokers that same thing, just push a property, they don't analyze it, they haven't known the numbers. That like at most maybe they just send a screenshot from AirDNA, maybe the bed and bath count isn't even right. Like they don't know what is going on with the numbers. But it just, if I buy it or not, I'm not going to want to work with them again. Let's say I buy it and it's not performing. Who am I going to think about? Especially if, like I know how to run the numbers, but for someone that doesn't, you think they're not going back to that person that they bought those 16 houses with. They're going to want to work with somebody that actually can like help them and guide them and give them honest feedback. So yeah, short term, new brokers, oh, I want to get that sale. I want to get the first one through the door. But it's like, what's it costing you long term? That person, they might buy another house. Maybe they don't. Who are they going to refer? Not you. If you did a good job for them, it's that one person leads to so many people. Kind of back to what you were saying before we hit record. It's a lot of things that have added up for you over the years, and then they start to pay off. It takes time. But for a lot of people that you've worked with, it's also, you did right by them. Maybe they buy something, but it's a referral business. They're going to probably refer more and more people to you for that reason.
Yeah, it is. Everything in real estate is all about building relationships. And one of the things that I absolutely love about being part of the Savvy STR agent team is that we are all on the same page. We are all in it for the long game. We're not trying to be the biggest realtor this year, because we know over the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years, we are becoming the go-to in the industry. We are becoming the go-to agents in our areas. And we are building our brand to be the most knowledgeable in the business. And it's those types of things. We're not saying yes to every single sale because it doesn't always make sense. Let's figure out what our investors want and help them figure it out.
100%. Yeah, we might need to do a part 2. I know we talked about the direct bookings, but a lot of stuff that we didn't even get to, but just certain things I think are really interesting that you're doing that was worth kind of just double clicking on. Joe, talk about the mastermind you're doing. Again, people might be listening to this and they're thinking, this guy knows his stuff. He's doing stuff I haven't heard. You're doing some stuff I've never heard. I'm doing over 300 podcast episodes. So how can people get in touch, or what's your mastermind if they're like, this guy knows his stuff, I want to work with him? What does that look like, and how can they do that?
Yeah, so a couple of things I'll touch on. Number one, on the real estate side of it, for investors that I work with, one last change that we do, and we don't have a drip campaign to send investors thousands of listings. I actually have a VIP website where I handpick all the properties that I think could be good deals, and my investors have access to that website. I'm not going to publicize that website, but when you're working with me, you get access to my VIP site. In my co-host mastermind, the biggest thing, and the reason why I did my co-host mastermind is, I told you I joined Bill's accelerator group. There are amazing masterminds out there, and some of these masterminds cost $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 or more to be a part of. And, we were just really getting started, and I was like, I don't have $20,000 to join somebody else's mastermind. But when I was at the wealth conference a few years ago, I met, some really amazing people. And I just kind of collaborated with them and said, hey, you guys want to hop on like bi-weekly calls and just kind of help each other out getting into this co-hosting business? And that's how it started. And it started with, I think, 6 of us. And then it kind of grew a few more. And then I decided this past year to start doing a podcast. So I have the Co-Host Coach podcast. And there's a lot of people that get into the co-hosting business that, like I said before, they're trying to go after those $300,000 properties on step number 1, or they're doing it not the right way. Some states, you got to have some sort of licensing. In Tennessee, in Pigeon Forge, you have to have it's a VLS license in order to be a co-host. So you have to actually do that. In some states, you do actually need your real estate broker's license. In some states, you can do co-hosting without it, depending on how you have it structured. So try to kind of help people through that and the setup of that. And my co-host mastermind was really just a group of people that said, let's all grow our businesses and help each other. And we still, to this day, we talk every Tuesday at 9 a.m. I think there's 12 or so in my mastermind currently. And then every Friday we have some office hours that if anybody has any help or questions, it's kind of an open hour. If anybody wants to hop on and ask questions or needs help with something, they just hop on and we chat.
I love it. That's awesome. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Social media, email, website, whatever.
Yeah. I'm very, very active on Facebook. So Joe Rohne, Rohne on Facebook. Shoot me a friend request. Shoot me a DM there. Joe at Joe at savvy.realty is my email address to get a hold of me there. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I'm very responsive. So, always happy to chat. You can go to savvy.realty/Joe and schedule a call with me on my calendar. And just love to be able to help investors and just love being in this space. There's so many amazing people in this space and everybody's willing to help each other. I hate it when people say, oh, how do you're in competition with this real estate company or in competition with that property management business. There's enough business out there for everybody. I want every single person I work with to win. And, that's truly the way I go about my business is I truly want to help anyone I can and help everybody win.
Not sure there's a better way to end a show. Joe, thank you so much for coming on, my man. I really appreciate it and look forward to part 2, but really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right.